Hey, hey, hey! Welcome to another episode of the Always Talking Crime podcast. I, Kimmy Thompson, am super happy that you, said listener, are here joining me. This is episode 22, right? 22? Super excited. It's episode 22 in the year 2022. Anyways, it's my birthday today, so be kind to everybody. That's the only gift that I would want. And if you could be so inclined, why don't you go ahead and send some sort of donation to one of your local rescues and put a little note in there that it's for me and this podcast. Because I am a huge advocate of animals. Like I've mentioned before, I have rescue animals, and every year for my birthday, I usually try to set up some type of fundraiser. And I haven't gotten around to it on Facebook yet. I think I'm going to set it up tomorrow. I usually do a fundraiser for the rescue group where I got my dogs from. But I understand that, if you're not affiliated with me on Facebook, I'm going to post my fundraiser on Facebook. But if you would rather just, find your local animal shelter or humane society or any rescue group that you love, go ahead and send a donation, even if it's just $1. Every dollar freaking helps. Let me tell you that. I also want to mention before we get started that I had a whole different case planned to do today. But then I started thinking to myself, holy shit, Kimmy, June has been Pride Month. And I almost let that opportunity pass me by. So I'm going to switch it up. And I spent a couple of days this week researching a new case. And that's the one I'm going to give you today. And I'm shelving the case that I had ready for July. So just so you know, it doesn't mean I'm not going to do the other case. It just means I'm pulling a switcheroo, and I really, really want to honor this man that was killed in 2009. I'm going to tell you about what a wonderful human being he was. And I really wasn't planning on doing two Michigan cases back to back because, the Jason Dalton case, the Uber driver case, that took place in Michigan. And this case takes place in Michigan as well. That was totally not my plan, but in the honor of it being Pride Month and in the honor of our victim of this case being a proud, wonderful, amazing human that also happened to be a gay man, I want to do this tribute to him this week. Okay, well, thank you for joining me. I'm so happy that you are here because this podcast is all because of you, because I certainly would not have made it to episode 22 if I didn't have amazing listeners like you. And I wanted to shout out a couple of my listeners that gave me some amazing Apple podcast reviews this week. So shout out to Pam and shout out to the other Kimmy. Thank you so much for your amazing 5-star reviews and for saying so many amazing, kind things about how much you're enjoying this podcast. That really means so much to me, guys. You literally have no idea. So I'm going to just move on to the story and take care of any other business that I have to talk to after we cover the case, okay? So we are going to talk about the murder of Kevin Bacon. Kevin Richard Bacon was born on November 28th of 1994 in Lansing, Michigan, to parents Carl and Pamela. When he was a young child, the family moved to Swartz Creek, Michigan, which is really just a small suburb of Flint, Michigan. During the 4th grade, Kevin met his very bestest friend forever. Her name was Michelle Myers. They clicked instantly, and they maintained their friendship for nearly 20 years, and they even eventually became roommates. Kevin lived his time on this earth with openness and complete transparency. He was a confident gay man who was strong-willed and confident in all of his choices. He was attentive, compassionate, and caring to everyone who crossed his path, and he was known to always put other people first, especially his friends and family. Kevin did have some mental health struggles at times, because really, quite frankly, don't a lot of us, but Kevin was always open and forthcoming about it, and he sought help whenever it was needed. Kevin seemed to be like a jack of all trades, so to speak. Like when I was researching Kevin's background, I was totally impressed with how much he got done and how much he did at such a young age. When he died, he was only 25 years old. And listen to this, guys. He went to cosmetology school at Sharp's Hair Academy in Grand Blanc, but he was also going to the University of Michigan in Flint to study applied psychology. Kevin's goal was to become a clinical therapist, but he was also fascinated by runway styles, and he dreamt of styling hairs for fashion shows someday. He had always had a natural talent for styling hair and was especially great at braiding. I love this comment by someone in his family. They reported that from the time Kevin was only 12 years old, if he came upon a friend or really anybody with hair that was long enough to braid, Kevin was going to braid it, which I think is so great. While he was going to school, he worked at a few different hair salons. He experimented on himself with bold hair colors and makeup trends. Kevin was 6'2" and 300 pounds, so he was a big boy. And he was also known for his colorful tattoos, which he got because they, quote, made him love himself in his own skin. He even had some tattoos that honored famous YouTube star Jeffree Star. He is also remembered to loving his fur babies. And that's one of the reasons, guys, another reason why I was asking you guys to contribute or make a donation to an animal shelter of some kind. Maybe you could even do it in his name and not mine, because it's not about me. It's about Kevin Bacon. And it's about his 2 cats, Smokey and Fuzzy, and his dog, Hannah. I told you all of these details about Kevin because I guess I just really want to hit home to all of you about what a wonderful, positive, loving light Kevin was to this world while he was in it. And as I continue with the rest of this podcast episode, and it starts to get more and more disturbing, I feel it's important for all of us to remember him as the amazing person that he really was. Kevin was single, and in today's society, if you're single, you already know. It's kind of like if you know, you know. It can be difficult to meet people organically. So pretty much like most single people, Kevin decided to turn to online dating. The problem with meeting people online, though, is that basically anyone can make an online profile. It requires no background check whatsoever. So anyone can create an account, whether it's a real account or a fucking catfish account. This is really troublesome, though, because it requires people to do their own investigating prior to a safe meetup. And I'm not certain how many people actually take the time to do that. It's important that people make sure that the person they've been talking to is actually the same person in real fucking life. So it's just a very risky thing to do. I mean, so many, like millions of people are doing it. But it's actually been proven statistically that crime rates, especially sexual assaults, have gone way up since the creation of dating apps. Now, I remember personally, after my ex-fiance and I broke up after being together for 5 years, I wanted to start meeting new people. I honestly had a hard time getting over him, even though he was a douchebag. And when I first met him, you know, I had never been on a dating app. And by the time we broke up, dating apps were like, you know, the thing. So I figured, you know, okay, well, what the hell, I'll give it a try. But that was the first time that I ever got to experience that whole dating app scene. And it's actually how I met my current boyfriend. He and I matched on 2 different dating apps on the same day. So it's actually pretty funny to joke around about now. But really, I'm super lucky that the only drama I experienced was weeding out the married men and all of the fuckboys, because there's a lot of them. I wish that Kevin was still here and, you know, could say the same thing, you know? I mean, it's just, this story, it breaks my heart because there's so many millions of people that, you know, either, like, it's not, I'd rather get catfished and go on a bad date and, you know, have to come across a fuckboy versus losing my life the way that Kevin did. And his dating app of choice was an app called Grindr, which, just in case you did not know, Grindr is an app for gay, bi, and transgender people. It's location-based, much like Tinder or Bumble, so it's going to show you which users are near your current area. Okay, I lost my place. Okay, so where is it? Okay, so sorry guys, on December 24th, 2019, see what happens if I stop and just take one little sip of my glass of wine? Like, I just lose all control. All right, so on December 24th of 2019, Kevin started talking to a man by the name of Mark Latunski on Grindr. He told his best friend Michelle, without going into too much detail, that he was going to go and meet up with someone and that he would check in with her later. He left their apartment around 5:30 p.m. About an hour or so into his date, he texted Michelle to let her know that he was having a great time and he didn't know when he was going to be back. He told Michelle jokingly that if his mom called, just tell mom that I'm sleeping. Less than an hour later, at approximately 6:20 p.m., Kevin's phone was turned off. Christmas Day arrived, and Kevin was supposed to meet up with his family that morning for Christmas breakfast. But his parents were concerned when he didn't show up. It just was not like him to not show up, or at least not to call and say he was running late or he wasn't coming or whatever. Like I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, Kevin was such a considerate person and he was always punctual. So this happening was something that was totally out of character for him. Everyone tried unsuccessfully to get a hold of Kevin the entire day, and everyone just became more and more and more worried every passing hour. When Michelle told Kevin's family about the date that he had gone on the night before, this was obviously a ginormous red flag to his parents. They immediately contacted the police to report him missing, but of course, like we hear in so many other true crime cases that end badly, the police department did not officially declare him as a missing person right away. So his family and friends were left to investigate on their own. They decided to start retracing Kevin's steps from the night before. They pinged his phone, and the last location that they saw it ping at was at a shopping center parking lot. Now, they drove to that parking lot, and when they got to the location, they found Kevin's car still parked in front of the Family Dollar store that was there in that shopping center. Inside his car was his wallet, his keys, his money, his phone, and also, this is kind of weird, but there was a bag of clothing inside the car. It was Kevin's clothing. And Michelle confirmed that the clothing in the bag were the exact same clothing that Kevin had been wearing when he left the apartment the night before. So, of course, this was super alarming to everyone, and they began thinking the worst. Unfortunately, this shopping center did not contain any surveillance cameras, which is totally fucking weird. It's just crazy weird. In this day and age, it seems like we're being watched everywhere we fucking go. Am I right? But this shopping center did not have a single surveillance camera. And it could be because, the town that he lived in was the size of, I think it was a 4-mile circumference. There were only, I think I remember reading, I didn't put this in my notes, but there were maybe a couple thousand people. I might be wrong, but I might be getting it confused with another case I did, but I know it's a small area. It's a small little suburb. So maybe that's why this Family Dollar store or this shopping center did not have any surveillance cameras. I'm sure they do now, but they did not at this time. And, that's really too bad, because that probably would have shed a lot of light on maybe what had happened to him. The search for Kevin began to expand, and his friends and family reached out to people at Grindr. They tried to get as much information as possible to help them find Kevin. But the people at Grindr, absolutely refused to hand out any information. They said that it was all private and personal, and they weren't able, just to, give that out. And I don't know. That seems, I understand it, so I'm not saying, oh, they're wrong. But it just seems like if somebody's using an app and then somebody goes missing and there's potentially a crime involved, or, somebody's safety involved at the very least, it just seems like more can be done to get these apps and these companies, to give some more information. I don't know, but it's just unfortunate that Grindr did not cooperate at the time. 3 days later, it's now December 28th, Kevin was still missing, but police were now finally on board, and they caught a break in the investigation. They were able to access the information on Kevin's phone, and they were able to get into his Grindr account. It revealed all of the messages that he exchanged the night he went missing. They came upon a string of messages between Kevin and 50-year-old Mark Latunski. It's Latunski, I'm sorry. They figured out where Mark lived, and they immediately headed to his house to conduct a welfare check. Mark's home was a quaint little house located in Bennington Township. It sat on the property a bit. It sat back on the property a bit, so it wasn't like right up by the road, and it wasn't near any neighboring houses either, so it was a little bit secluded. Mark Latunski sounds like a huge fucking douche canoe, in my opinion. I'm sure you're going to agree with me as I continue to tell you the story. I read that he had gotten his master's in chemistry from Iowa State University, and when he left, he actually sued the city of Ames, Iowa for the $1 per month charge for sewage. Mark claimed that it was unconstitutional. Like, fucking whack job. Mark had been married to a woman named Emily from 2001 to 2013, and they had had 4 children together during those 12 years. In 2010, however, and again in 2012, Mark was diagnosed with some scary sounding shit. Severe reoccurring chronic depression with psychotic features, adjustment disorder, and anxiety with paranoid schizophrenia, as well as having borderline personality traits. Mark had been prescribed medications for these diagnoses, and when he took these medications, he was fine. But as we all know, if people miss taking any of their medications, they can be simply fucking unbearable. And it was reported that Mark Latunski was fucking unbearable when he stopped taking his medication. His wife, Emily, had eventually filed for divorce. I don't even understand how she could have been married to him for 12 years. That's a long fucking time. I'm guessing it's because there were kids involved, and I know firsthand that it's not easy, to leave relationships and, do all the things you need to do for your own safety and sanity. Long fucking time. That's all I can say. But, oh my gosh. So, okay. So, yeah, wait till you hear the rest of all these fucking crazy things that he did to Emily. So, Emily eventually filed for divorce. And she said that there were many times when Mark wouldn't sleep and he would just stay up all night watching torture videos. He would refuse to bathe or shave and would also threaten to get rid of his kids' pets. And for that, if nothing else, I have double fucking fingers and I say, fuck off, Mark. One time, he even kidnapped 2 of his kids and kept them from Emily, which totally violated their custody agreement. Another time, he refused to let any of them leave his house, including Emily. So he was just fucking crazy when he wasn't on his medication. So, I'm never going to be anybody that's going to bash somebody that has mental illnesses as long as they're medicated. I know that sometimes people that are on medications, they want to go off the medications because, and I know, this is not me personally, but I know people. My ex-fiance was like this, that I brought him up earlier. My mom's second husband, my ex-stepdad, was like this. You start to feel side effects from what I was told, and maybe you don't like the effects, you don't like what's happening on the side effects, so you decide just to stop taking your medication because for some reason or another, you start to think that, these side effects are way worse than all of the fucking reasons that I need to be taking these medications in the first place. So I get it. I get what Mark is thinking because it's not like he's the only motherfucker that has stopped taking their medication. But it's just unfortunate, But anyways, during a past run-in with police, Mark had been caught with his dad's property, or he had been caught on his dad's property, and the police asked him who he was, but he fucking lied and told them that his name was William Dean and that he killed Mark Latunski with the stroke of a pen. Whatever the fuck that means. I mean, I don't know. Like, that's weird. Like, maybe he was trying to, I don't know. Maybe he was just trying to come up with like a new identity or something and say that Mark Latunski didn't exist anymore. I don't know. Or maybe he was just off his meds and totally fucking insane, But I'm not really sure what that's supposed to mean. And I don't want to spend a lot of time during this podcast episode trying to fucking figure it out. Anyways, after Mark and Emily divorced, he moved on from Emily and he ended up being married to a man by the name of Jamie Arnold. Their marriage lasted about 5 years, but they separated prior to Mark's date with Kevin. Jamie reported that Mark started saying some really unusual and unreasonable things, and he started throwing accusations at him. Jamie claimed that, Mark claimed to Jamie that their neighbor, was polluting their water. And Mark claimed that his family was not even his family. Not only that his biological family was not his, but he was also trying to state that his children were not even his. He would also no longer bathe inside the house because it was toxic. Jamie reported also that he would come home and Mark would be entertaining other men in the house, and they were still married. He would try to involve him in the activities, but Jamie would be like, thanks, but no thanks. I'm out of here. They ultimately separated in September of 2019. I mean, it's just like any other relationship. I mean, like, if I were to walk into the house after work and my boyfriend had, like, other people in here and, like, wanted me to, like, participate and be all involved, like, for one thing, that man would be out on his ass because I would not be with the person that did that. And I am not kink shaming at all, because whatever people do, if it's consensual, if you're in a relationship and you both decide that you want to do that, cool. But when you're doing it behind your spouse's back, and I don't know, it just seems like he was like trying to push this type of lifestyle, like swinging or whatever, on Jamie. So, I mean, it's the same whether you're heterosexual or you're gay. Doing this is not okay no matter what. That's just gross. This was only 2 months before police showed up on Mark's doorstep looking for Kevin Bacon. When Mark answered the door, when the police showed up looking for Kevin, he was wearing nothing but a leather kilt. Now, Mark is also a big guy and has a really long beard. When police told Mark that they were conducting a welfare check, he let them into the house to take a look around, no problem. It wasn't long before the police discovered a trap door that led to a hidden room, like a dungeon, in his fucking basement. Once the police got down into the basement, they were fucking horrified. I'm sorry I keep cussing. Like, I cuss, I'm sweary. But I mean, as I'm saying this, I don't even have the cuss words in my notes as I'm following along. I just already know what happened. And I'm like so upset that, I just keep dropping the F-bomb. So, sorry, not sorry. Anyways, it's horrifying, guys. It's horrifying. And the police, anyway, they found the remains of Kevin. He had been left. And I'm going to give you guys a trigger warning, okay? So if there are some details here that you don't want to hear about, like you might just want to skip ahead a little bit, maybe like a minute or so. I'm not sure how long I'm going to be talking about this. Probably not long, because I quite frankly have a hard time stomaching it. But anyways, here I go. Kevin had been left hanging upside down, and he was completely naked from the rafters of the ceiling. Mark was immediately arrested, and they read him his Miranda rights, but he readily started admitting everything to the police. He admitted that he had stabbed Kevin in the back, and when that didn't kill him, he slit his throat. After that, he tied a rope around Kevin's ankles and strung him up from the ceiling so that he would bleed out. Mark then went on to say that he noticed it had been a new moon that night, and he usually has Rocky Mountain oysters, which I've never had, but sound fucking gross. They must definitely be an acquired taste. Rocky Mountain oysters, for those of you who do not know, they are bull testicles, and I cannot imagine eating them. However, some people do. But anyways, since Mark did not have any bull testicles, he cut off Kevin's testicles. He cooked them in a frying pan, and then he ate them. Mark also freely admitted that if he would have had more time, he would have continued eating parts of Kevin's body. This is how Mark's version of the story went. Mark said that he and Kevin started chatting on Grindr and agreed to meet up. He said Kevin really wanted to live out a fantasy he had, which was to meet him in a public place. Kevin would get completely undressed and then get into Mark's van wearing nothing but a blindfold, earmuffs, and ankle and wrist restraints. And this might explain why all of Kevin's clothes and belongings were found abandoned in his car. So this part does make sense. There weren't any signs of a struggle or foul play in or around Kevin's car, though. So it's really impossible to confirm if this story was true or not. But it does make sense because, Kevin and Mark had been chatting back and forth, and, I'm sure it was not rated G. I mean, they're on fucking Grindr. They're on a dating app, So I'm sure that it turned into maybe sexual talk and maybe fantasy talk, and I'm sure that even though Kevin should not have trusted Mark, he probably felt that he could, and he left himself open, unfortunately, and vulnerable to somebody that he couldn't trust. So it makes me really sad. Mark said that Kevin rode in the back of Mark's vehicle all the way to Mark's house. They had had consensual sex when they got there, and then they talked for a while. He said that Kevin confided to him about some suicidal thoughts he had had in the past, and Mark offered to help him die. They had talked about how to make his body disappear. And Mark said that Kevin wanted his body to be repurposed. So Mark had supposedly told Kevin that he would grind up his bones to use them in the soil of a tulip garden, and that he would use his organs to grow chestnuts. Police found a package addressed to Mark, and it was a food dehydrator. So Mark had been planning on using this food dehydrator to turn Kevin into jerky. Mark was charged with murder and mutilation of a body. He was assigned a public defender, and during the arraignment in front of a judge, the judge asked him to confirm that he was Mark Latunski. And Mark said, quote, "No, I am Edgar Thomas Hill, and Mark Latunski is my nephew." With this outburst, Mark's competency to stand trial totally came into question. He was sent to the Michigan Center for Forensic Psychiatry, where he stayed until he was deemed competent. They probably kept him there long enough to get him back on his meds and wait until his meds, were working again so that he was acting maybe halfway rational. So something else that is interesting and important to add. This attack on Kevin was not an isolated incident whatsoever. Just a month before Kevin was brutally and tragically murdered, a neighbor had called 911 after seeing Mark outside chasing a 29-year-old man. This man was running from Mark's house, and he was wearing nothing but a leather kilt. And it was probably the same one that Mark was wearing when police showed up at his house, because what are the fucking chances? But anyways, when the police arrived that evening, the man told them that he had been chained in Mark's basement, but decided to run because he suddenly became spooked. When the police questioned Mark about the incident, Mark told them that he was only concerned about getting that $300 kilt back. I'm going to be posting on Instagram. I'm going to post for you all a picture of this fucking douchebag, Mark, wearing this ugly as fuck leather kilt. And if he spent $300 on it, that's insane. But anyways, the police report was never filed because everything that happened inside the house was apparently reported as being consensual. In addition, in October of 2019, just 2 months prior to Kevin's murder, there was something else that had happened. A New York man was visiting Michigan on business, and he had called 911 after he too had escaped Mark's basement. He told dispatchers that he had met Mark at a bus station in Flint. He told them, do you hear the choo-choo? I live right by a train tracks, and the train is going by right now, so I'm assuming y'all can hear it in the background. Sorry about that if it's distracting. I totally didn't even think about that, but it goes by numerous times a day, and I'm used to it now, so I didn't think anything of it. And then I thought, just in case y'all start to hear a train going by, I should probably mention it. But anyways, this New York man was visiting Michigan on business, and he had called 911 after he too had escaped Mark's basement. He told the dispatchers that he met Mark at a bus station in Flint. He told them that they had gone to the store, they had a soda, and then he suddenly woke up in the basement after obviously being drugged. So he was definitely roofied. The caller said that he didn't want to pursue legal action. He just told the dispatcher, just get me the fuck out of here so I can go home. And, it's super unfortunate that that neither one of these men wanted to press charges against Mark, because if they had, it's possible and probable that Kevin Bacon would not have been murdered. And I'm not like shaming them, or like I would never want them to feel guilty. I mean, I'm sure that they feel like they dodged a huge fucking bullet by escaping. And I understand that they probably didn't want to pursue legal action because maybe they weren't out of the closet. Maybe they were married. Maybe they were, and I don't condone cheating at all, but, there's probably reasons, personal reasons that, they didn't want to come out publicly, with an issue like this. And it's nothing to be ashamed of, but I can understand why somebody wouldn't want to go to court about this, especially like if they're not out, if people don't know that they're gay or bisexual, then of course it's going to be more difficult to get a person like that to press charges. So it's totally understandable, but still unfortunate. So both of the 911 calls from the victims are available on YouTube, and I would like to add them here like I usually try to do, but honestly, they are so muffled and super difficult to understand that it's probably best if you just search for them on YouTube and watch them like with the captions so you can kind of read along. But basically both men are out of breath because they're obviously fucking running someplace to be safe. So it's super hard to understand. So in my opinion, what happened with Kevin Bacon was something that Mark had attempted with at least 2 other victims that we know of, which in my opinion indicates premeditation and leads me to believe that Kevin never actually wanted to die, because these 2 other victims didn't want to die either, but found themselves in very similar situations that just didn't go as far as Kevin's did. Also, if Kevin wanted to die, why was he stabbed in the fucking back? When a victim has wounds on their backside, it indicates that they were unsuspecting or trying to get away from someone. So if someone is shot or stabbed in the back, it's hard to claim self-defense because you wouldn't need to defend yourself from someone that has their back turned to you or someone that is running away from you, right? Mark Latunski's murder trial had been set back a bit because of COVID-19, but also because of Mark's competency, it kept coming into question. Mark's public defender, Douglas Corwin Jr., said he had prior delusional thoughts and that these thoughts involve conspiracy theories that involve judges, nations, and royal bloodlines. He still has those same delusional thoughts and cannot separate delusion from reality. He went on to say, the center succeeded in obtaining better behaviors from the defendant, but the underlying reason he was determined to be incompetent is still present. However, Judge Ward Clarkson ruled on October 5th of 2020 that Mark Latunski was mentally fit to stand trial. If it weren't for the pandemic, his trial would have most likely started right away. But then, because of, the whole pandemic and everything, they were able to, do the whole, the whole same thing, that he's crazy and that he was not fit to stand trial. And it went back and forth, actually 3 times, okay? So in May of 2022, which was just last fucking month, a forensic psychiatrist again found that Mark was absolutely competent to stand trial. So finally, this trial will most likely begin in the fall of this year. I think that there's like a date in October that is set. So unless something strange happens, we may all get some closure. The family may get some closure. All of Kevin's loved ones. Everyone needs closure about this, because this just breaks my heart that this happened to him. And I think that, like, when I started reading about him and when I started hearing about what a kind person he was, and I saw his birth year, and I was like, holy mother of fucking God. Like, I have kids that are his age. Like, he's actually right smack dab in between ages of my second daughter and my third daughter. I have 4 kids. So I have 3 daughters from my first marriage, 1 son from my second marriage, and Kevin Bacon was born between my second daughter and my third daughter. So it just sickens me to think of anybody hurting one of my kids. And even though my kids are all grown adults, they can make their own decisions, if they do what they want. It just kind of like, I don't know, it like tugged at my heartstrings more. And it really made this relatable to me, as far as like his family his mom, his dad, they've just got to be devastated. And it just breaks my fucking heart. And I mentioned earlier that Kevin had tattoos that honored Jeffree Star, for the YouTuber. And I wanted to point out that when Jeffree Star heard about what had happened to Kevin, he donated $20,000 to Kevin's GoFundMe page. And he encouraged his millions of followers to help out Kevin's family. So, what have we learned from this case? I think everybody knows by now that we need to all be incredibly careful when we're meeting new people, especially when we don't have any mutual friends. Like if somebody just friend requests you on like Facebook or Instagram and starts following you, if you don't have any mutual friends, like that's a huge red flag. But it's super scary when you meet somebody on a dating app, for sure. So if you're meeting someone for a hookup, just be sure, like, not judging, because I've done all these things before, but tell someone, please, where you're going. Tell someone when you'll be there and when you'll be back. Give as many details as you can, and leave your phone turned on and keep it with you. Please meet people in a public place first and use your best judgment. Like, knowing that these dating apps still haven't found a way to filter offenders, like, that should tell you everything that you need to know, okay? So it's really up to us, the users, to do our due diligence to make sure that we stay safe. And, like, I told you that my boyfriend and I, we had matched on 2 different dating apps on the same day, and we started chatting and everything. When we decided to go on a date, like, some people will say, well, I don't want them to know where I live. I would rather, just meet them somewhere. And I've been chatting with him for a while, but I had a roommate at the time. Like, I had just, gotten out of, my relationship with my ex-fiance, like I had said. And I wanted my roommate to meet him. I wanted somebody else besides me to see him, pick me up. Like, even if we would have driven separately, and just gone somewhere. Like, I wanted my roommate to know who I was going with. I wanted him to get a sense of whether or not this guy was a good guy or not. And I kind of was testing my boyfriend a little bit also, because if he wasn't willing to come to my house and meet my roommate, then I probably wouldn't have gone out with him at all. Because, like, I was super new to this, and I had, like, gone on a dinner date or a brunch date with one other person after my breakup before going on a date with my boyfriend. So this was all new to me. I wanted to make sure that, they weren't somebody creepy that wasn't willing to meet my roommate. So he had no problem, and like everything, obviously I wasn't murdered. I'm still here. I'm still alive. But I mean, there were a lot of people that I chatted with that like gave me like creepy vibes, and like, guys, like, it's super, super imperative that if you're on these dating sites that you just take the time to get to know them, or make sure that other people see them. Make sure that you share your location with your best friend. I don't know. I'm just devastated by what happened to Kevin. He seemed like one of the coolest people ever. And I'm just so very sad that his trust was taken advantage of. I do not fucking believe that he wanted to die, and all that bullshit that Mark was telling the cops about. Yeah, we were talking about how we, could get rid of his body. Like, basically, this motherfucker just wanted to cannibalize Kevin. I mean, Kevin was 300 pounds and 6'2". Like, it would have taken a long time for Mark Latunski to fucking cannibalize Kevin. So, I mean, it's just a sad situation. So, I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer on my birthday, but I want everybody to maybe just, if nothing else, like, just sit quietly for a moment and say a prayer for his family and for his best friend and for all these people that loved him, because they are waiting. They have the anticipation of going to court and making sure that this motherfucker gets put away and pays for his crime. And yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, I've seen some interviews. I'm going to list my case sources in the notes, of course, like I always do. But I did watch some interviews with his parents, and it was just, there's no words for how sad it was. So I guess, if you're a parent, like, you understand. If you're not a parent yet, someday you will understand. But if you are single, please, I urge you to stay safe, okay? And do all those things I already told you. Listen to your gut instincts. Do not trust people too soon. I understand, like, everybody has their little fetishes and fantasies. But fantasies, in my opinion, are best left to do with people that you know and you trust with your life. So, Kevin Bacon, it sounds like you were an awesome fucking man, and I cannot wait to update everybody on this case after this Mark dude ends up going to court. But anyways, that's the story of Kevin Bacon's murder. I remember seeing this like pop up in the headlines, and I remember at first when I saw it, I was like, what the fuck happened to Kevin Bacon? Because I was thinking it was like Footloose Kevin Bacon, you know what I mean? But actually, there was something really nice that Kevin Bacon, I think he put on his Twitter, or no, it was Instagram. He had put on there something like, for obvious reasons, he was thinking that morning about the friends and family of the other Kevin Bacon and how his life had been taken from him way too soon. And the actor Kevin Bacon, went on to like talk about how much, the murdered Kevin Bacon loved hairdressing. And he said something funny, like, I can't think of the exact words, but the actor Kevin Bacon said something like, I'm sure he would have done a great job on this mess that's on top of my head. So, I mean, but I remember being scared that, like, oh my gosh, Kevin Bacon was murdered. And then I saw it was a different Kevin Bacon. And then when I looked into it, and now when I researched it, like it's super sad, guys. So with that, if you're enjoying this podcast, like my friends Pamela and the other Kimmy are, go ahead, please, 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 leave me a 5-star review. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please leave me like a written review, okay? Because if you leave 5 stars, like, that's just rating it. I know on Spotify you can't like leave a written review, but guys, it makes a huge difference for all of your podcasters, not just me. If you love something, go give them a review. And that even goes for like your favorite restaurants, the person that does your nails, your mani-pedis, your massage therapist, everything, that server at the restaurant that gave you great service. Go to Google and leave that person a 5-star amazing written review. Like, so many people wait and only give reviews when they're bad. So I'm going to challenge you guys not to only give Always Talking Crime an amazing review, but I am going to challenge you in the next week to go ahead and leave someone else a great review. Like, I'm going to go on Google and I am going to leave the girl that I had a new girl today do my eyelash fill for my extensions. And oh my gosh, I thought she was better and sweeter and more friendly than the girl that usually does my lash fill. Like, I felt way more comfortable, and I am going to make sure that I say something amazing about her this weekend. So go ahead and make somebody's day amazing by telling them what a great job they did or how much you enjoy them. Okay, let's make the world a little bit of a brighter place. And don't forget to keep the family of Kevin Bacon in your thoughts and your prayers. And with that, guys, until next time, keep talking crime.